Livewire Review. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to a new episode. We're going to talk about the Ioniq 5, the Nissan Ariya, and the Ford Mach. Well, let's get into it.
So I think we're going to kick this off with these three talking about the business end of these little crossovers. I shouldn't call them little, large crossovers. This is the Ioniq 5. Trunk space is 770 liters of space with the seats folded up. Now, it's got a pretty decent depth to it. My biggest issue has been with this, with the rake on the back, you lose a lot of height here. I mean, the average size, say, parcel or bin of any nature is going to have a hard time fitting in under that glass. But with the seats down, you get 1,680 liters of storage with the seats folded down. Now again, your biggest restriction back here is gonna be the height on the Ioniq 5. You've got a little bit of a squished roofline for aerodynamics, which is great, but you lose that capability. Now, why don't we hop over and we'll look at the Ariya. So around here on the back of the Ariya, we actually have 646 liters of storage with the seats in the up position. Now, in some of the base models, you actually have a wicked depth on these. In the last video that we did, the Engage, over here on the Platinum, you're actually getting that Bose audio subwoofer bolted in where the spare tire should be. So you're losing some of that storage back here. Over audio, I know Jeremy, for example, the audiophile of the two of us, may enjoy having an extra speaker, but me, I'm like, that's just dead space. If it's good for you, it's good for you. Now, as far as your height goes here, you've got more height for storage than the Ioniq 5. You will have to remove that package tray to achieve that, but that does come out pretty quickly. So what's the next thing? Of course, with the seats down, you're gonna get 1,690 liters of storage with the seats folded down. And like I said before, the Ariya has considerable more height than the Ioniq 5, as well as even at its lowest point here, you've still got about 4 inches more height for storage back here than you do over there on the 5. This package tray does not store like this. I just moved it out of the way for sake of this video so you can see how cavernous this thing feels back here. But with that out of the way, you can get a ton of stuff in here. Good for a decent sized family, but you know, for dramatic effect in the video, I do want to close the hatch. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just drop that back in and hit that button. So why don't we pop over and we'll check out that Mach next. Don't break it, don't break it, don't break it. Yeah. So last, we're over here on the Mach, and of the three, it is our winner in the seats up category with 822 liters of storage behind those seats. This is just a sunshade, privacy shade type thing, so same thing, it'll come out of the way pretty quick. And we do believe that that does include a lot of the underfloor storage here. You can get a fair bit of stuff in and around that package tray there, but overall, this is much larger. And same thing, it has a little bit of that height loss here, but this back end rakes up so quickly that you get a fair bit of height as far as your storage goes. And then of course, now where does this rank with our seats down? 1,689 liters of storage with the seats folded down. And honestly, I think if you were to pull the two front seats up a little bit from the current seating position they're in, you'd probably even squeeze a little bit more. There is a ton of space in this thing. So I think that's it for back ends. Why don't we hop up to the front? We'll talk about some of the numbers, some of the storage, and the different features that these things have that really make them stand out.
So I'm introducing something new to the channel. I'm going to talk about the heat pumps and the heating systems in these vehicles, and I'm going to label them as an A, B, or a C. So to give you an example, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, that would be in the same class as a Tesla because it pulls its heat from the liquid cooling system that goes around all the electronics and the battery. In fact, in this one, they actually have two different cooling loops, but both of these meet in the middle with a special condenser so they can pull heat from both different loops at different times. I think this is one of the most ingenious systems on the market. So even with the smaller battery, these 400-kilometer range cars will probably all go about the same distance at a cold weather like -15, something like that, because this car is so efficient when it comes to drawing heat. That extra 10 kilowatts that these cars have is mostly going to go towards heating. So this is what I'm going to call a B-class heat pump, because this one does not draw from the liquid cooling system or the power electronics or anything in the vehicle. It is just a condenser system. So this system usually only works down to about -10. But the large battery in this vehicle, 87 kilowatts, should make up for any shortfall that comes in. Now, The last one is the C-Class. That is the type of vehicle that only has a resistive heater, but it does have the biggest usable battery of the three vehicles here. This one is a 91 kilowatt hour battery, this one is 87 kilowatts, and this one is 77.4 kilowatts. Those are all usable capacities, just to give you an idea. So when it comes to about minus 15 Celsius and below, all three of these cars should go about the same distance, despite the fact that this one is the smallest battery. So the Mach-E has the one extra trick up its sleeve. As we know, this one has a very large frunk in it. As it's always advertised, you throw your ice in there and you have your tailgate party. So all the extra storage you have inside there, you get even more up front, and it's not just big enough for a charge cable. The problem with the Ariya is all that's under the hood is just your power electronics. There is no frunk in this one. And last but not least, we got the Hyundai. They put a little frunk just because people asked for it, but it's really only big enough for your charge cable. And one last point on the charge cable, the Hyundai only comes with a 120 volt charge cable. As we have found with both the Nissan and the Ford, they come with a 1450 plug right out of the gate. So we're going to quickly talk about horsepower and torque, weight, numbers like that that we really need to cover. This one is 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, and it weighs around 4,600 pounds. Now on to the Ariya. Okay, over here on the Ariya, we're at 389 horsepower, quite a bit more than the Ioniq 5, with 442 pound-feet of torque. As you see, that's very close, within 4 foot-pounds. Basically, that comes down to the gearing that they put in the final drive unit on these cars, and this one weighs about 5,000 pounds, so it's about 400 pounds heavier than the Hyundai is. And over here on the Ford Mach-E, you have 346 horsepower, 428 pound-feet of torque, and it weighs about 4,800 pounds. And last but not least, when it comes to the power numbers, we're going to talk 0 to 60 times. All three of these vehicles come in so close to each other. The Ioniq 5 long-range all-wheel drive is 5.1 seconds 0 to 60. We figure this one's about 5 seconds flat because we had a 0 to 100 time of 5.1 seconds. And on the Ford Mach-E, comes in around 4.8 seconds. These three vehicles are so close. That's why it came really good for this comparison.
So the other comparative number to talk about here when you're talking EVs, of course, is charge time. So we're talking about charging from 10% to 80%. Here on the Hyundai Ioniq 5, we're talking about a charge time of 18 minutes, which is pretty damn fast, versus the Ariya, which is between 35 and 40 minutes, and the Mach-E at 48 to 49 minutes. So as we kind of went down the line, you can see the differences. And I mean, 18 minutes it's an attractive number. 10% to 80%. If I can do that, I mean, how long does it take me to fill up my car with gas currently today? 10 minutes, especially if I gotta wait for somebody. So I mean, that comparatively to your current experience driving is very close. These two, a little not so much. I'll get Jeremy over here to kind of go over the science of these two because he's more experienced with that than I am. But when I hear that, I'm also kind of giving myself an edge towards that Hyundai, but I still kind of lean towards this one. But like I said, we'll talk about the science of this real quick, and then we'll tell you what we think overall.
So the reason I wanted to talk about the charge times on these is because this car and this car here are both going to have a typical charge curve. Basically, you want to get your battery down to the lowest percentage possible for the fastest travel time. This one can pull up to 150 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. This one will pull well over 200 kilowatts. And that's why this vehicle will get 10 to 80% in 18 minutes. That's one of the reasons why I would pick a Hyundai over these other two vehicles. But these two still have the advantage that they're going to be on the Tesla network within the next 2 years. I still haven't heard from the Hyundais whether they're going to be on that connector at all. Now this one in the middle is a little different. This one in real world testing, it is listed at 130 kilowatt speed that it'll pull, but I've tested it on the Electrify Canada chargers. It'll do 115 kilowatts, pretty steady up until a pretty high charge state. And that's one reason why I'd recommend the Nissan, is because for anyone unfamiliar with EVs, this one will not be a shock when you go to the charge station. You can go at any percentage and you should expect to see 115 kilowatts. Okay folks, we've come to the end of this one. We're gonna have a quick discussion about which one of these three would we pick. And I gotta say, it's pretty hard, don't you think?
It's a tough choice, and I think we really need to start with pricing. We'll throw all three of them up on screen so you got an exact dollar amount here. But you know, we're looking at in the 60s range, you know, pushing 72,000 on the Ariya here, and somewhere in the mid to high 60s on the Mach-E as well. So comparable, plus or minus, you know, 5,000 to 7,000 bucks. So what are you really dealing with? You're dealing with sports focused, but utility-minded.
Yep.
Utility-minded, kind of
Everyday
boring,
car.
kind of boring,
Yep.
in my opinion. And then same thing, utility, family, kind of modern car with not a lot of trunk space minded. And of course, you're talking about 3 different powertrains: all-wheel drive, I believe front-wheel drive over here on this guy.
No, actually, that one's an all-wheel
This
drive
is all-wheel as
Yep.
well. Okay, my apologies. But it comes down to your usage cases. What are you looking for with these 3? And I think when I really kind of sit back and I boil it all down, I like the Hyundai. I might go Ariya with a lower trim. That's where my gut is. I don't need that sports focus to the Mach E. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
The Ioniq 5 for my family is a little small. The trunk for me is a little small.
Yeah,
I like
because of that slope in the back
I
end,
like
right?
the cavernous size back here, especially when you get those seats down. I don't need a Platinum Plus, that's absolutely for sure, but a lower trim with this all-wheel drive system, that's kind of where my money's at. That's where I would put hedge my bet, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm really having a hard time choosing between these because these 2, as we know, have just signed up for the Tesla connector. So we know that these 2 are going to be able to get across the country, no problem, within the next 2 years. Hyundai hasn't signed up for the Tesla connector yet, but that's due to the 800-volt architecture. So we got to see what they're going to come up with there. However, the Hyundai, in my opinion, is the best built car here, followed by the Nissan, and then the Ford is my last choice for that. But the price point of the Hyundai, it really speaks volumes to me. To get all that technology, that build quality, and everything for around the $60,000 range, I'm super impressed with it. I would probably still choose the Hyundai and just hope that they're gonna get that Tesla connector one day.
Yeah. No, you know what? Solid points. You have to take all these things into mind when purchasing. And whether you're leaning Ford, Nissan, or Hyundai, doesn't matter. Always check out the Bourgeois Auto Group for any type of EV needs. We've got all kinds of stuff on the lot, and we can help you make the right choice for you. And I think until next time, follow us along, join the channel, see what we're going to be doing next, and always ask us questions. We'll try our best to bring you everything electrified on the market. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.